Yeah, welcome back to my class again today. We are still on raising exception. In the last class, I taught you how to raise a built-in exception, value error. So in today's class, I want to teach you how to create your own exception class, raise it, and then handle it. That is what I want to teach you in this class. So still on raising exception, right? Uh, Raising exception, right? So I am going to create an exception class. We've done inheritance, so this should not be a problem for you. And we've done object-oriented programming, so we've been creating classes. In my previous videos, you should go back and look at how to create a class. So here I am going to create a class. So I'll create the class using the class keyword, right? Class, right? I'll call it custom exception. Right? Now, because I'm creating my own exception, right, I have to inherit from the base exception. So this is my own exception name that I've created. Now it is going to inherit from what? Exception. Exception is a built-in exception, right, in Python. But since I'm going to create my own, so this one is going to inherit from this. So this one is going to inherit all the attributes and all the methods that are in this exception. But I'm now going to add my own attribute or method that will enable me do whatever it is that I want to do and make my program to be personalized to me, right? So custom exception, inheriting from what? A built-in exception, which is what? The base exception that will be for this. All right. So inside this, my custom exception now, I'm going to define my init method. So I will say def init. Now, in this my init method, I'm going to supply self to it, and then one other parameter, which is what? Message, right? Now, that is what I have created. Now, this is my initialization method, which I'm going to use to initialize this attribute, this message into my attribute. But since I'm inheriting from this base exception, I am not going to, the attribute that I'm going to initialize will be the attribute inside this base exception. Now, how do I access this base exception? The attribute of this base exception. I have to use my super method, which is what? So I will now come here and I will say super, right? Dot init. Now, this initialization method of message. All right. So you see what we've been doing before when we are creating a class is that we create a class and then we define this init method inside the class and then we supply our parameters to it. In the normal class, what should have happened here is that, if I was going to initialize an attribute of this method, all I would have done would have been self.message, right? And then I will assign this message to it. That is what I will have done. But because I'm inheriting this exception, what I am doing is not to create an attribute inside this class and then initialize. Already, this exception will have an attribute. It is that attribute that I'm going to initialize. So to access that attribute of this exception and initialize, I will have to use my super method. So this is what I'm using to call the init method that is in this class. This init method is in this class. Then I am supplying this message of this init method to it. And that is what I have done here. So here now, I have created So here I have created my custom exception. So this is it. This is my custom exception that I've created. So this is the class, custom exception, and then I've initialized it, calling the init method to initialize the init method of this exception. So that is what I have done. Now, I'm going to raise this exception. So exactly what I did in the last class is what I'm going to do now. So what I will do now is I will now come here and I will say def viral math, right? And then I will supply A, B, C, D. Then I will go in. So the same thing that I did in the last class. If B equals to 0, right? Go in and what? Raise the exception. But the exception I'm going to raise now will not be value error anymore. The exception I'm going to raise now will be what? Custom exception. Raise custom exception, right? I'm going to raise custom exception. Then I'm going to supply a parameter to the instance, which is what? The message. Cannot divide by 0. So this is the message, right? Now I'll come here and I'll say result. Then I'm going to write my expression here, which is what? A divided by B multiply C plus D. Then I will close it. Then I will say return result. So this is what I have created my exception. I am raising my exception here. Then how am I going to handle the exception call, right? How am I going to handle it? So this is another one. Now I want to handle my exception. So I'm going to put it in the try except block. So I will now come here and I will say try, right? My try block. Inside this place, I'll call my print function so that it will display answers to me. Print, then I'll call this viral math. Right? Then I'll give it 8, 2, 2, 2. And then I'll close this parenthesis. Then here I'll say except. So I'm going to cache this custom exception. Custom exception. As E. Then in it, I will say print error, right? Comma E. All right. So this is what I am going to do. So this is me handling this, my exception. So first I created an exception here. So I'm not using a built-in exception. So I created my exception here. And then I'm raising the exception here. And here I'm handling the exception. So in this case now, my 2, A to be given to A, 2 will be given to B, 2 will be given to C, 2 will be given to C. Then it will come in. It will check B equals to 0. No, B is not equals to 0. So it is not going to go in to raise this exception. It will come in here, it will come to this next line, and it will calculate, and it will give me the value here. So this one will give me what? Will give me 16.0, right? That's what it's going to, because it's a float. That's what it's going to give to me. All right. So now I am going to change this value to 0, like I did in the last class. So once I change this to 0, 0 will be given to B. When it comes in, if B equals 0, which is true, go in and raise custom exception. Once this exception is raised, it will now go from here to this guy. So this one will cache the custom exception that is raised. And this instance, which is the object, is created for it. Through that object, it will access cannot divide by 0. And it will print out my output as what? Error, colon, cannot divide by 0. So that is what this will print out for me. So this is how you you create an exception class of your own, then you raise it here, and then you handle it here. So let's go to PyCharm and let me demonstrate this for you to see. If you like this class, don't forget to click on the like button and also share this video. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so. You can also follow me on my Facebook page. So let's go to the PyCharm. This is our PyCharm. I am going to create my custom exception. So let's create my custom exception. So, okay, we can just, let's go back. Since I have my race exception, I can just, okay, my racing exception. This was, okay, this was what we used in the last class. I can just do this here. Let me explain it to you. Let me explain to you. So let me delete this. Now, I'm just going to create the class custom exception, right? Now it's going to inherit from the exception class, which is what you are seeing, the first one, all right? Now, class. So I will now define the init method. Init, then self, and I will supply message as the next parameter to it. Then I will come here and I will say super method dot init, then I will supply the message to it. All right, so now my exception has been created. My exception class has been created. All right, so now I'm going to now define my method, which I will now use to raise the exception. So I'll say def var math, and I will supply my parameters a, comma, b, comma, c, comma, d. All right, and I will go in and I will say if b equals to 0, go in and raise custom exception, which is that. Now supply the message to it. So inside it, I will type cannot divide by 0. Okay. Then this one is inside, not outside. All right. So here I will now create my variable, which is what? Result. And I will assign whatever the result of the expression I will put here now, I will assign it to what? To result. So I will say A divided by B, multiply, then open parenthesis, C plus D. So that is where I'm putting my calculation. Then I will say return result. Okay, so I have defined that. Now I want to handle this, my exception. So I will say enter. I will now put it inside my try block. Try. Then I will call it because I want to print out the one that has no error. I want to print out the answer on the screen. Now I will say viral math. So that is it. Then I will supply 8, 2, 2, 2. And then I will say catching the custom exception. as E. Then I will come in and I will say print. I'll supply a string literal, error, colon, comma, print E. So this is it. Now, this one is not going to throw me any error. It's going to print out a value, which is what? 16.0. We already know that. So I'm going to execute this. So you can see it's giving me 16.0. Now I'm going to change this value, which is the one for B, to 0. Now, once I do this, it will go in. Now it has created what? This is my exception class. Now it will go in because I'm calling this method, and it will check if B equals to 0. Yes, B is equals to 0. It will raise this custom exception with this value, and then it will catch it and then print it out on the screen. So I'm going to execute this to show me error, cannot divide by 0. So you can see I created my custom exception here. I raised it here, and then I handle it here. So that is my program, and that is what I want to demonstrate to you in this class, how to raise an exception, how to create your own exception, raise it, and then handle it. So in the next class, I'll be showing you exception chaining, right? And after that, we'll move on to other topics in Python. So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to click on the like button. And do not forget to follow me on my Facebook page. So till we see in the next class, bye-bye.